The next group of 3 are continuous tone bands. That means they go from light to dark without any step progression like you have here. It will be a continuous transition from light to dark. So we'll start with the 2H. Basically, you're going to do the same thing you did here, where you started with the 10% and you worked it all the way to the dark area. Then you want to do the next row value. You don't see the difference between the two values, that the light transitions into a little darker, into a little darker, into a little darker, until you get to your 100% with the 2H. Now, it may not happen in the first few passes that you do, but then maybe you want to work backwards this way and work 2 ways in order to get those transitions to work. So I'll start this first one, and then I'll show you in the next step how to transition and get nice smooth change between each area as it gets darker. Here's our first band of 10% value. This is where you want to start when you want to do your continuous tone. I have marked it 2H, so we know that is the pencil that we're using. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to put another layer of 2H pencil, but we're not going to start at the very beginning as we did before, but we'll start in about halfway into the 20% area and add value that will be a single layer of value just like you had before, and work this entire thing again towards the dark area. So you'll have now a second layer of value on top of the 10%. So we're going to do this all the way across using very small little circles to fill in the area and fill in the rest of this band. And once it's filled in, then we will make the adjustment at the transition end from the darker to the lighter. It really does help for you to have the entire band filled in so you can see the relationship from the darker to the lighter. I've completed the second layer of value, and now we want to make sure that we can transition this, just putting a little bit more value at this front end where we had stopped and bringing it closer to the 10%. I'm going to put much less pressure on my pencil at this point and just gently bring it into the 10% area. And that will show up even more once we add our third layer of value. So once that's done, and you may have to come back to it later, we can start with our third layer of value. So we're going to start that somewhere in this area here, and we're going to add and go all the way again to the far end of the band. You can kind of see how your value is working, because you want it to stay within the realm of what you have here. Now it will transition rather than be divided. So basically that's what I'm doing at this point. I'm going to make everything about this value. And if things get a little darker at the farther end, don't worry about it at this point, because it's all going to get much darker as we progress. But put in these, you really need to put these light values in and build the value as you go along so that you take control over how the change in value happens in the process of creating a gradation. Just keep adding layers, layers, and layers. Okay, so we have another layer on here, and we're just going to gently feather this in, and we can start with our next layer. Take it back farther And you can even feather this as you're going at this point to get to the next darker step. Once you get to the dark end, you're going to find you may have to add more value and transition even a little bit more. It's an ongoing process of gauging the darkness and making adjustments as you go along. My recommendation is not to go too dark too quickly. It's much easier to add value than it is to take it off. So at this point, we can start working from the back. So put on another light layer. Don't go as dark as this because you still have transitions that have to go on here. So we'll start from the back and we'll work towards this area here. Add another layer, make it nice and even until you get to about here where you want to start to transition. You're still putting on even layers, except in the transition area. All right, we put another layer on and transitioned. I'll go back to the dark area and go farther and then stop a little short of where we were, and so on until we have what we really want. I want to let you know that what I've done so far here with the transition has taken probably at least 2.5 hours. I'm expecting it will take another hour to finish this. So what I'm trying to tell you is to make sure that you allow yourself time, because if each one of these is taking 3 to 3.5 hours to do, you can't leave these until the day before class. As you get darker, you can start to use the tip of the pencil a little bit more. That will take the graphite into the tooth of the paper, and that will make the dark value come up. Again, it should still be very light pressure. Don't press hard on the paper at all. And one last layer, and that should do it. So there you have your continuous tone from light to dark in a 2H pencil.